What are the Hunger Games for?
I used to think that the Hunger Games were punishment for the district. Then I thought they served as a warning to us here in the capital about the threat the districts posed. Now I know the whole world is an arena, and we need the Hunger Games every year to remind us all who we truly are.
And who are you, do you determine?
The victor.
Why do societies care about gender roles? What does a society gain from people falling into gender roles? I ask this as a trans person who doesn't fit into binary roles. What is the functional purpose, disregarding the morality of it, of enforcing gender roles, and what the hell does that have to do with Hunger Games? Let's start off from the basics. What is gender? We have to understand what it is actually to understand its role in society. Gender is the range of social, psychological, cultural, and behavioral aspects of being a man, woman, or other gender identity. This is according to Wikipedia's definition. The main reason I use them is I just really like the way that they explain it. Gender roles, on the other hand, are the expected behaviors and societal expectations of a given gender. Basically, how we expect people of a certain gender to act. There are a lot of different explanations for why societies form gender roles. Scientists debate whether it was because of natural difference in the sexes, unlikely in my opinion, historical environments, out of necessity for reproduction, like how male birds have bright feathers to attract a mate, or if it was a patriarchal social structure that caused gender roles. In reality, gender roles exist due to some combination of those reasons based off of the society that these roles come from. A type of society that really benefits from gender roles and tends to emphasize them is authoritarian societies, which finally brings us back to the Hunger Games. Hunger Games is a fascist/authoritarian government. It works by separating its citizens from obtaining the goods needed for survival without their intervention and dehumanizing and enacting regular violence towards the part of the population that produces said goods. And though it is not a part of the series that is emphasized as a system of oppression, gender roles are used as a tool by the capital for control over citizens. But to further understand this point, I will go back to talking not about the Hunger Games again in my video essay about the Hunger Games. In fascist regimes, gender is used as a tool of oppression, and understanding the significance of ways gender was used in historical situations will help us to understand it in this fictional scenario. A pretty obvious example, if you know anything about Germany pre-World War II, is the Institute for Sexual Science. One of the big things the Nazi Party did while they were spreading through Germany was burning the writings and research of this institution. This was one of the first scientific institutions made for studying and understanding human sexuality and gender. Genders other than cis male and cis female are a threat to fascist regimes because they show people in the regime that people can exist outside of the roles defined for them by fascism. Variations in sexuality are also seen as a threat because the general population's role is to create more workers, so relationships that don't facilitate reproduction are suppressed. Something that is not as prominent a topic in the Hunger Games, but is briefly acknowledged, is the oppression of queer people. In the prequel that just recently released, Sunrise on the Reaping, there is a character who is briefly mentioned to be gay, but can't openly be gay due to capital treatment of it, specifically peacekeepers. Gender oppression is kind of talked about by Katniss when she's preparing for her interview in the first book. It's not as overt, but because she is a girl, she can't present herself in the same way that the boys can present themselves. She has to fit into a role like a sex object, a seductive killer, fragile, or down to earth. Her hostility can't be overt, and the violence she portrays has to be sexual. And this can also go into the ways that tributes had their bodies sold off for pleasure. However, that was done kind of regardless of sex, so it's not as much a topic for this video. The fact that trans people aren't mentioned in the Hunger Games is likely due to their oppression. Tributes are picked based off of their sex, not their gender identity, I think is also something that is important to mention. It emphasizes an emphasis on sex. Another thing that happened in pre-World War II Germany was that birth control access was restricted. In the Hunger Games books, birth control is never mentioned, despite pregnancy being mentioned whenever they talk about Katniss being pregnant with, like, the fake pregnancy thing. And the closest mention to any type of birth control type thing is that tributes are injected with a hormone suppressant type drug pre-arena so that they don't have menstrual cycles or grow facial hair. Because we can't have the children we're making kill each other have facial hair for some reason. I think that there is not birth control for anyone except maybe Capitol citizens, because I do think that the Capitol wouldn't want to allow people to have birth control so that they can have more people working in the districts. Another example of fascism in the real world was in Italy in the 1920s under Mussolini. There was an emphasis under his regime that masculinity looked a specific way, that men should be dominant, nationalistic, and virile. Which, okay. There was an emphasis on anti-feminism, anti-bourgeoisie, and anti-intellectualism. Being smart or seen as a part of the elite was feminine, and being feminine was weak and submissive. Women were encouraged to take on more traditional roles like homemaking and child rearing. A lot of this can directly be seen in the world of Hunger Games. So, to establish the idea of what the Capitol wanted men and women to look like as the ideal citizen, we will take a look at some official Capitol propaganda that was published as promotional material for, I believe, the first Mockingjay movie. There were 7 images in total, each of different districts, so they depicted people from different districts, just random people. Each of the so there were 3 were of women, 3 of men, and 1 was of a young girl under the age of 10. Each of the images that depicts a man that is dirty, muscular, and all but one has facial hair. One of them depicts a man from 10 holding a baby goat that balances out that, like, caring look with the fact that he's wearing a fur coat to depict the animals that he kills, and he's smoking a pipe. This all points to a very specific view of what masculinity looks like. The women, on the other hand, are all clean, mostly wearing dresses and performing roles that are less requiring of strength. The little girl is depicted as dirty and parentless, and she's from 12, which I think depicts something specific about 12, but you know. Also, this is off topic, but I do need to mention that one of the images shows a man wearing tire pants. It's kind of irrelevant, but very funny to me. The image looks AI generated, but it was released in like 2014, so this was a creative choice that a human made. I just need to like point this out because it's hilarious to me. Anyways, back to the actual focus of the video and away from tire pants, you can even see the gender roles reflected in the jobs held by people in District 12. We see a couple different adult women in 12 during time periods of the series, different time periods of the series that work. While mining is a job apparently open to both men and women, we see these women hold other roles within town that aren't related to mining, despite that being the district's export. Katniss's mother, Astrid, is an apothecary. Gale's mother and Hamige's mother both did laundry for the people of the town, and Peeta's mother works at the bakery. All of these jobs are not only not mining, but are also jobs that reflect traditional women's roles of caring and homemaking. Characters like Katniss and Peeta that have more autonomy and are able to push back against the power are characters that don't follow binary gender roles as much. Katniss is both a provider and a carer throughout the series. She cares for her family and she provides for them. Peeta is both strong and artistic. He does art and he is able to fight with a lot of physical strength. Gale does not have as much power, and you can see the way that he fits into more binary roles. His anger and propensity to violence somewhat blinds him from enacting true change within the series, and that is deeply tied to his masculinity. In the research for this video, I saw a lot of articles talking about how the oppression of women in a society is often a marker for the rise of authoritarianism, and I want to talk a bit about that. Over the course of this video, I have been trying to teach you more about how to recognize the motivations behind the type of actions that governments take and whose rights they try to restrict. We've been examining a fictional government because it's easier to look at that than governments that have real control over real people's lives. But for the past 10 plus years, we have been seeing the rise of authoritarianism, and it's important to recognize. Women and queer people are often the first people targeted, and I have more examples than I'd like to of this happening in the real world. I don't have an answer for any of this. I just want to encourage people to learn to question why governments are taking the actions they are, and learn to vocalize why something doesn't feel or seem right to them. In conclusion, Hunger Games uses gender roles as another facet of control. Just like real-world governments, they force people into roles in order to create the world that they desire, and the characters with the most autonomy aren't tied down by their society's gender roles. I hope I explained all this well. There will be some references to the stuff I looked at in the description. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this and would like to see more content like it. All my love. Bye.